Hi, I'm L'Oreal Moondagger. I'm the current Kingdom Regent of the Desert Winds, and we're a very widespread kingdom which can make travel very difficult and nearly impossible to do in the winter. So I decided to create a series of tutorials in order to bring the arts and sciences to you, no matter where you are. So I hope you enjoy watching and learn a little something too.
Alright, for this video we're going to be teaching people how to make a macrame belt. For this you will need macrame, you will need a ring, you will need scissors to cut your macrame, you will need a measuring tape, you'll need to have a basic understanding of kindergarten level math, and you will need a lighter to melt the ends of your macrame so that it does not fray and get all over the place. Now the first thing you need to do is you measure the person. You measure around the waist and then how far down you want the belt to go. So if the belt is going to be knee length, which is pretty standard in Amtgard, and go around the waist, and if that total number is 50 inches for a very small person, you then take that number and you multiply it by 3. And the reason for that will become clear as we go further on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our macrame and we're going to measure out a strand that's 150 inches in length, which is 3 times 50. Once you have done that, you don't need to make any more measurements. You can just use that initial strand of cord to measure against, as I will demonstrate now. So we're melting the end of our macrame, and we are now taking the measuring tape. Now this is a quilter's tape. It's considered rude to use this on people because most people don't need 120 inches. I like having plenty of measurement though for doing belts and various other projects. So it's 120 inches in total. So I'm going to need to get out the full length of the measuring tape. And then an additional 30 inches, which will bring us to our grand total of 150. Now the reason you want such a long amount of cord is you're going to be losing some of the length of your cord through the weaving, and in addition to that you're also going to be losing half of your length when you fold the cord in half to attach it to your ring. So there's the first one. We don't need the measuring tape anymore. Now, macrame, the difficulty with it is it's rather difficult to find a good selection of colors if you can even find the stuff. It wasn't until recently that Utah had a store that you could go to and purchase macrame, which is Hobby Lobby. Beforehand you had to order everything online, and with shipping costs as they were, your best bet was to order in bulk. So you pay $8 shipping for 1 spool of macrame, or you'd pay $8 shipping for 5 spools of macrame. So if you're going to be doing a project, I highly recommend making more than 1 belt, or at least getting some extra so that you can make additionals. Alright, we've cut all the strands of thread, as you can see. Got them laid out. I want to make sure they're untangled. This is a 2-inch steel ring. This is pretty much the standard. Now, you're not going to be able to find any of the thicker, nicer looking rings outside of the leatherworking store. Those are quite a bit more expensive. This was $2.50 for 8, as opposed to $5 or $6 for 1. So, these are the ones I like to work with, unless I'm making like a knighting gift or something like that. Now, the first things first is you're going to take one of your strands of thread. You make sure you've got both ends. You're going to tie what's known as a lark's head knot. You're going to run the strings through the ring, and then pull them through all the way. Now, the pattern that we're making on this belt is going to be a V pattern, as you'll see momentarily. So we're going to have the purple in the middle. We're going to have the blue on the outside. Now, it's important to remember macrame comes in several different sizes. This is 2mm macrame. You're gonna end up with a thinner belt, a finer belt, and to get the same width of a belt of a different material or of a different diameter of macrame cord, you're gonna end up using quite a bit more. Like this one is gonna be about 150 yards or so of macrame, and by the time you're done, it's gonna be a 24-strand weave if we end up using all of the cords that we've cut. Now you don't want to put too many cords on the belt, and the width of the belt is going to be determined by the number of cords you use and of course the ring size that you're using. With a V pattern, you want to start with your colors basically split in half, but you want them to mirror each other. So you can see we've got the blue on the outside and the purple on the inside. Now if you wanted to do a thinner V, you could mix up the colors. You could have maybe 2 and 6. You could have maybe 1 on each side and 6 in the middle. It all varies. It all depends on how you want it to look in the long run. But the important thing is to get it started. So we're going to be splitting this in half. Now we're going to start in the middle, and you weave your way inward. As you can see, I've taken one strand from either side and woven it around itself. So we're going to take this one and go over, and this one's going to go under, over. You start in the middle and you work your way out to the edge. Once you get out to the edge, it's pretty simple. An important thing to remember, the single most important thing that a lot of people mess up on is tension. Something I still screw up on is keeping track of threads, and the more threads you have, the more macrame cord you have, the easier it is to screw it up. As you can see, about half the time is spent rearranging your cords. Under, over. See? I already tried to screw it up. Over, under, over. Going back to tension, it doesn't matter if it's tight or loose or somewhere in between, as long as it's even tension. If you have uneven tension, you're going to end up with a weird looking belt that no one's going to want to wear. And all it takes is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Your first belt, if you don't like the look of it, unweave it before you finish it off. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Just keep doing it until you've got it down pat. You'll see the pattern start to emerge here in just a little bit. For this pattern, you'll be tempted to just weave all of one side and then go back on the other. It's really hard to keep your tension if you do that. You see me going back and rearranging cords, making sure that everything's fine. You want to do that every so often. Just go back and double check your tension. Make sure that everything is even. Okay, now we're starting to get into the blue, and this is where you can see the V pattern start to emerge. And you can see how it's starting to get a little complicated with the over-under. We're going to have 12 strands per side. But basically, it's like a slightly more complicated version of braiding. Things to remember: how long to cut your cord, how much cord you're going to need, and burn your ends. Melt them a little bit. Macrame is essentially plastic, so melt them down. It's also a lot easier to work with macrame when it's a much larger weave. When it's a much larger cord. It's 2 millimeters. Kind of a pain in the butt. But, like I said, it just takes practice. Keep trying, and eventually you'll get it. And that is how to get it started. And from here on, all you do is you just repeat the pattern. You make sure that you start on the outside. You just go left to right, right to left, and continue on down until you get to the end. Now, when I will next show you how to finish off a belt, the proper way to do it. A lot of people will just tie a knot in the end, and that is not the proper way to do it. Sometimes you're going to find that you're going to have to take a break halfway through, or partially through, as the case may be. When you need to do that, you just do a simple knot as close to the weave as you can on both sides, so that your tension doesn't get completely screwed up and things don't come unraveled. And then you can just come back to it as needed. You just set that to the side, and you're done. As you can see, we've come to the end. Now we are ready to finish wrapping it up. This one's pretty complicated, but it looks complicated, but once you see how it's done, it's actually pretty simple. So we'll show that here just now. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to bring all of our cords together, and we're going to find the longest single cord that we have. Now we're going to wrap it all the way around and then back underneath the loop that we just made. So you've got a little knot right there. And you go back the other direction, hold it still, back the other direction and go under. And you just repeat this over and over and over again until you run out of cord.
Oh.
Now for this I'm going to do just blue on the outside, because I think it'll look prettier that way. So we're going to find the next longest blue one.
Okay.
Right there. We're going to go the opposite direction that we just went.
Oh.
We're going to try to wrap up our cord.
Oh, that's cool.
You like it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We're going to go back through the loop we just made.
Okay.
You want to try to keep that in line of knots. You see that line of knots right there?
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to keep that straight.
Oh, that's cool. You're the best maker, Daddy.
I try. Okay, now we're going to get one more from right down there.
Oh, and then we'll be done?
And then we'll be done. Well, then comes the easy part.
Oh. What is it?
Well, the next part that we do, we're going to trim off the threads so that they're all even.
Okay. Now, when I'm a big girl, can I do knit
Certainly can.
crochet and stuff as Mommy does?
Okay. The next step is to trim everything down so that it's the same length.
Oh.
And you cut off the cord right here as close as, pretty close. You want about that much, about an eighth, maybe a quarter of an inch. And what you'll do is you'll melt it just like you melted the ends of your cords, and then smush it down flat. And that'll blend right in, and you'll have a fantastic finished macrame belt.